today we have a battle face-off between the Megalodon and the Mosasaurus, or Mosasaurus, however you say that dinosaur's name. You know who I'm talking about. It's an ocean battle. Now, we're only gonna watch half of this video today. We're gonna watch about 20 minutes because it's a 40-minute video by Goji Center. Shout out to him.
Horses in a battle of epic
but we're gonna watch half of it today,
on one end, a
half of it another day.
Predatory shark, once thought extinct,
and we're just gonna see, you know, the face-off first, and then the battle in the next video. Let's try to think who would win, though.
Is the Meg. On the other end, a genetically modified monster brought back to life after being extinct to inflict terror and awe on anyone who lays eyes on it.
That's terrifying.
This is InGen's Mosasaurus.
InGen's Mosasaurus.
Will cover all their battle attributes, speed,
let me know in the comments.
Weapons, and
Are you
more
Team Meg?
to determine the outcome
Are you Team
in a fight
Moss?
to the death between both contestants.
Let me know.
There is only one spot in the top ranks of the ocean's food chain.
I think I'm Team Meg.
Who will win? Watch till the end.
Let me know in the comments.
Find out as we witness the most epic underwater battle of all time.
Watch till the end to find out.
Versus the Meg on Goji Center's
They're actually going to be battling at the end. But like I
Face-Off.
said, we're only watching the first half of this video today.
The analysis platform, we will
and then we'll come
make
back
clear the
in a
proportions
couple
of
days.
these two creatures before they face each other in the
or
arena.
tomorrow. I don't know.
The Meg,
we'll see.
or Megs, were featured in the 2018 film. Here we were introduced to a massive, previously thought extinct shark who was surpassed by an even larger second specimen that appeared later in the film.
I still haven't seen Meg 2, by the way. I haven't seen it.
Both the book and the novel did take the time to design a shark that looked more or less similar to the paleo-accurate Ototus Megalodon that existed a while ago.
How big were they, by the way?
This animal was not 100% accurate, but it did feature a bulky build that was seen in the real-life Megalodon.
That is insane.
Thanks to this, we will be capable of estimating the weight of this creature in this simulation. Recent methods of measuring Megalodon using its vertebral column suggest that this shark could measure close to 70 feet and measure 100 tons.
100 tons!
Megalodon could hit around 50 tons. But how does this compare
absolutely
to Jurassic
insane.
World's Mosasaur? This marine reptile is perhaps the most misscaled creature in the Jurassic franchise, often changing its visual scale literally every time it shows up on screen. Its official size has been changed frequently as well.
So nobody really knows.
This, the most consistent metric is
kind of like a guess.
21.9 meters or at around 72 feet
72, but it's not as bulky.
Any slight increase or decrease in size for both of these animals will result in a drastic change in mass. But we can't
That's why I think the Meg is just stronger.
Accurate Mosasaur and scale it up to the Jurassic World's iteration of this animal.
Terrifying.
The specimen known as Penza, who was around 12.5 meters long, will help us get an estimate of the mass of Jurassic's Mosa.
It's very
Using
large,
the square cube law, we can come up with an InGen Mosasaur that measures around 72 feet and weighing at around 50 tons.
That's
to
heavy.
come up with the most equilibrated fight possible, we will avoid using overscaled models such as this one, lest this would be an absolutely unfair squash match. Its opponent will be the first Megalodon seen in the film, measuring around 55 feet in length and weighing at a whopping 65 tons.
I mean, that's still ginormous.
Now that we have the appropriate proportions required for an equilibrated matchup.
So now we know how big they are.
The analysis platform.
Okay, so we noticed that Megalodon
armor
is smaller, I think, but he weighs more.
Will determine which one of these beasts' armor can take and repel damage better than the other.
I think the shark has very good armor, right?
Its extinct ancestor both seem to have a smooth, unarmored layer of skin.
Yeah, they don't even have armor.
This layer, however, should not be underestimated. Upon taking a closer look, we find what is known as denticles.
Denticles?
Small teeth that are neatly arranged along the shark's
tentacles,
skin
just
that serve
denticles.
both as armor and hydrodynamic enhancements.
Okay, so they do have a tad bit of armor, I guess?
Against trauma, but also reducing water resistance, helping it swim faster and quieter. These thick hides were useful for both protection and body temperature insulation, meaning that it had to be thick. At around 8 inches of hide underneath the scales, thickest around the belly and neck. This layer or armor wrapped around a thick muscular creature would make it most difficult to bite on. But how does this InGen Mosasaur compare to the Meg?
See, bro, either way, you have a pretty solid pick.
Mosasaur and InGens differ greatly when it comes to armor. The real extinct Mosa has scales that ranged in shape and size.
Face kind of looks like an alligator, doesn't it?
Resemble shark denticles, which were also used to swim quietly underwater.
Quietly? That scares me more than anything.
Being quiet, that big? InGen's Mosasaur differs from the real Mosasaur by having an array of osteoderms aligned on its back. Osteoderms differ from scales given that their bony composition makes them a bit more resistant, and these usually come with thicker layers of hide to firmly hold these in place. The result is a stiffer layer of armor that will be a lot more difficult to bite through. However, this also comes with its drawbacks.
So it's more difficult to bite through,
protruding formations only means that unlike the shark, this guy will be creating greater water disturbance while swimming.
So he's not as sneaky.
This guy is going to be a loud swimmer.
Okay, so that's good.
Sneaking up on the shark
he's not quiet.
Impossible.
But the shark is quiet.
Drawback, and perhaps the worst one, is that this crocodilian-like armor does not seem to cover the underbelly of this creature.
That's what I said.
Yes, this armor does compensate for the lack of blubber found in the real Mosasaur.
Oh, so if he comes up from the bottom,
more robust, but this coverage does not appear on this lower area, leaving it vulnerable to attacks.
That's a lot of vulnerability down there.
But is it still enough to win the edge?
Yeah, look at that. He can just come right up.
We must also take into account the shapes of these animals. On one end, we have a much more stout animal with a deceptively thick
the Mosasaurus looks like a croc.
Making it difficult for any animal to inflict a lethal bite on a critical organ. And on the other end, we have a narrower creature with resistant armor on its upper body, but none that would provide reliable protection against a well-placed bite from below. For this reason, the first edge goes to the Meg in overall armor.
That's my pick right there, baby. Let's go.
Number 2, vulnerability.
Vulnerability? That is definitely...
you would think that this is a category you don't want to win.
The Moss, right?
The metric used to determine who wins the edge in this category is how well the contestant will perform in combat after the vulnerable points were critically hit.
I mean, it's the Moss entire underbody.
That being large means big exploitable weaknesses.
That's true, too. Because he is ginormous.
Most sharks have a total
so he has a lot of places you can hit him from.
The designers of the Meg went ahead to give this shark 7. These
and those gills
now span a larger surface area.
They do cover a lot.
Why exactly are these a weakness? Let us explain. Gills require some degree of flexibility to function. After all, their purpose is to allow water to come through, allowing these creatures to intake oxygen.
Right.
To allow this, sharks have thinner skin to allow said flexibility, which also makes the organs underneath more vulnerable and easily exposed if injured. This is why they tell you to hit the most sensitive organs of a shark if you ever come in contact with one. But will the
I will never come in contact with one. I'm not going to be in the water that far out. I will never come in contact with a big shark.
Specifically on this area.
Mark my words.
Orcas take this a step further and literally bite these off. Or sink their teeth into the shark and flaying them alive.
Orca whales are savage.
In the prehistoric era, Mosasaurs and Tylosaurus did not coexist with Megalodon.
Tylosaurus
were acquainted with other big sharks such as Cretoxyrhina, which suggests that they did know how to defend themselves against such animals and probably figure out weaknesses over time, just like modern-day dolphins and orcas.
What is a Cretoxyrhino?
If the Meg does get hit or gets his gills injured, he does still have another set of working gills on the opposite side of its body.
He does have two.
It will be distractingly painful and would probably affect its stamina, but it's not enough to render this shark useless.
Oh my gosh.
Both sets, however,
terrifying.
And we have a problem. Upon observing the overall build
Let me know if you've seen the Meg too, by the way. Is it worth going to see? I want to see it.
It might actually have several weak points. Megalodons, and most definitely this fella, would over time learn to target the body parts that would aid its prey in locomotion. The tail and flippers.
So yeah, that tail is ginormous too.
How functional would the Mosasaur be if any one of these were critically injured?
I feel like he is definitely
if the Meg
more
managed
vulnerable.
To actually sink its teeth into the tail of this Mosa, it wouldn't necessarily be rendered motionless just yet. Remember, this animal,
he does have those giant flippers.
Has a total of 4 flippers that can still aid in propulsion. It won't be as fast, but will definitely still be able to make its way around.
Able to move around.
The problems start at the loss of 2 or more flippers. But getting to this point is really unlikely, given that the Mosasaur wouldn't put itself at risk of losing more limbs, especially because it's an agile creature.
It's not a dumb animal, I would say.
Here. Although the Meg seemingly has less weak spots, they are relatively easy to get to by this agile creature, increasing the likelihood of the Mosasaur hitting both and rendering this animal useless sooner.
I guess.
In contrast, if the Mosasaur does get injured, its larger array of locomotive body
all
parts
the Meg would have to do is come up from under him.
The fight a lot
Sneak
longer.
attack and it's over.
This one is close, but for
it
this
is close.
battle category, InGen's Mosasaur will take the edge when it comes to having less exploitable weaknesses.
I don't know about that. I don't know if I agree with that one, but I like it. I like it.
This will determine how efficiently these animals can process oxygen, retain it, and use it for
stamina
combat
is going to go to the Meg.
For how long?
It has to.
Even if water is made up of multiple oxygen molecules,
those giant gills,
less
bro.
oxygen-rich by volume than breathable air. Oxygen is a gas that can be compressed easier inside lungs and filtered into the bloodstream more efficiently than oxygen stored underwater. With this in mind, let's
the
go
Meg
visit
is definitely going to win this one.
Large sharks like this one keep a constant supply of oxygen intake thanks to a method they used known as ram ventilation.
Ram? What is it, a computer?
Forcing water past their gills
what is ram ventilation?
Their mouth partially open, ensuring a constant steady flow of oxygen powered by muscles that can repair themselves rapidly from strain.
And those are some big muscles.
Allowing these sharks to swim onwards from the day they were born until the day they die.
I would never be in that container.
These animals need to constantly keep swimming or else they'll drown. So, how does this tie in with stamina?
They can't stop swimming. How do they sleep?
Speeds, the Meg would be able to keep this momentum thanks to their mentioned hydrodynamic skin, requiring a short burst of energy to attain a certain velocity and then resorting to less potent movements to keep them at that speed. Problems begin to arise whenever this animal has to slow down, turn, and then speed up again. This will be almost impossible for the Meg in this fight because their
we're talking about stamina right now.
Enough to sustain
and I think if
bursts of speed.
If a thing has to move to stay alive, it's going to have good stamina.
All or nothing approach when hunting, committing to the initial attack. If it fails, then they will retreat and wind up enough energy and momentum for a second attempt.
Don't go that far in the ocean, please.
The Mosasaur is a lot different from the Meg in that it breathes air on the surface. Not only that, it's worth noting that the lungs of ancient marine creatures evolved to store as much oxygen as possible, equipped with lungs that could compress vast amounts of air in less room. Additionally, the blood of
I don't know anything about the moss, to be honest with you.
More oxygen in the red blood cells
I know a little about the Meg.
That live on land.
Just because it's a shark.
In their case, special organs such as enlarged kidneys can act as extra repositories for oxygenated blood. Sort of like a diver's tank, this lets marine tetrapods exercise prolonged movement, more than an equally sized fish.
I'm still going Meg.
In this fight, the Mosasaur, if not
I'm just talking the stamina.
would
just
be
the
able
stamina.
to have enough energy and stamina to maintain a relatively active fight.
Exactly.
Moving around and changing directions faster and more efficiently than the Meg.
Are we saying he would be?
It's no wonder why air-breathing organisms ended up being the dominant force in the oceans. In this particular battle category, we learn that the Mosasaurus will be able to keep up with a prolonged fight, giving it the edge in stamina.
Really? I just don't know, man.
Number 4, agility.
If an animal has to move to stay alive, you know his stamina is going to be really good.
Decided by the following
I would say the Meg wins that.
Can these animals turn around and redirect their momentum? The Meg in the film seemed to be pretty agile.
The Meg is definitely agile.
Of its size. It has been seen to make 180-degree turns and change their ascent and descent along the y-axis pretty fast.
I feel like I'm being a little bit biased, though, because I did pick the Meg.
This shark steers largely with just pectoral fins and a static dorsal, as compared to the Mosasaur's 4 flippers.
Yeah.
An important factor to take note of is its range of movement.
So maybe the Moss wins this too?
To move forward for proper oxygen intake through the gills.
My boy's kind of getting destroyed.
The Meg cannot move backwards.
You can't go back.
That's right. Sharks work only with unidirectional flow, meaning oxygen exchange requires water flow over the gills exclusively from the front.
He's got to keep moving.
Puts a hard limiter on this shark's range of motion. Or worse, if this animal is shoved backwards or not allowed to move, this animal could potentially drown. That is, for a long time, since shark's blood can store lots of oxygen.
Could you imagine
the Mosasaur,
a fish
on the other
drowning?
hand, can steer with 4 sets of muscular broad flippers that serve as very functional steering devices, allowing this animal to not just swim forward, but also
swim sideways,
upwards,
backwards,
downwards, and even backwards.
He can do pretty much anything.
In addition to that, this creature's flexible body will allow the Mosa to change direction direction much faster, in contrast to the Meg's wider turns.
So I think the Meg lost this too.
Greater stamina, the Mosasaur would be able to recuperate its speeds once switching directions as well. For this reason, the Mosasaur will once again take the edge when it comes to agility.
3 in a row.
But will the Mosasaur keep this streak when it comes to how fast they move?
Speed.
Number 5, speed. The metric testing how quickly both animals could move in a linear trajectory.
Wait, that list gave...
But in this fight, this
I'm confused about the list. I think he messed up the list a little bit. I thought green was supposed to be the Meg.
These two could wind up
it showed green won the last two, but it was the Moss.
They will be able to pull off a tactical retreat. When moving at high energy efficient cruising speed, the real-life Megalodon was already one of the fastest sharks to ever exist.
Exactly.
Its highly hydrodynamic body and inertia allow this animal to hit speeds about 20 knots or 23 miles per hour.
Imagine swimming 23 miles an hour.
To impress, consider that bottlenose dolphins, who by the way are considered some of the fastest animals in the sea, are a knot slower than a real-life Megalodon. The Meg, well, this guy has shown evidence of being able to swim much faster, capable of reaching speeds enough to catch up to whales, motorboats, and even jet skis.
True.
And make it jump out of the water with ease. Ooh. Maybe not as high as a modern-day great white, but considering the weight of this animal, these speeds could in fact surpass the real-life Megalodon. How does this compare to the Mosasaur? Recently, a survey commissioned by the team behind the series known as Prehistoric Planet managed to conclude that it was possible for the Mosasaur to burst to speeds that would clear 75% of its body length.
I thought it was about to say 75 miles an hour.
Up to a whopping 30 miles per hour in a burst of speed, and anywhere between 15 to 25 miles per hour in cruising speed. However, that's taking into account an animal that has close to no water resistance thanks to its smooth, streamlined body and a full fluke on its tail with enough surface area to push the required amount of water needed to propulse itself forward. The issue here is that InGen's Mosasaur is not only bigger, but would be heavily slowed down by the osteoderms that inflict water resistance.
Okay. So this time maybe he goes about 15
are actually
miles an hour.
A big deal when it comes to underwater locomotion. As this animal makes its way through the water, these osteoderms would hold up the water sifting along this animal's body, producing something known as drag.
Slowing him down.
This doesn't mean that InGen's Mosa is slow, though, for an animal of these specific proportions can allow better inertia to build up and easily maintain a top speed of more than 17.4 knots or 20 miles per hour.
20 miles per hour, that's fast.
The advantage for the Mosasaur is its ability to reach these speeds in less time at a higher rate. But will this be enough to win the edge?
Another one?
Underwater mobility during combat is different from on land, in that both contestants will heavily rely on something called inertia, heavily affected by the top speed reached by both the Meg and the Mosasaurus.
My boy needs to pick up the pace.
In this case, once the Meg and the Mosa lock on each other, both animals will quickly try to wind up to top speeds.
True.
Even if the Mosasaur can reach top speed faster, the Meg will most likely have enough time to reach its top speed in a frontal encounter, simply because there will be enough space between the two
35 miles an hour!
Not to mention the amount of momentum packed behind an impact of a Megalodon going at top speed as well.
That's a big boy.
Therefore, in this category, the edge for speed will go to the Meg.
Finally! We finally got ourselves a win. See, it's blue, so I guess
because both of these animals will fight in the vast open ocean.
Meg has won 2 categories only.
Is imperative
Moss
to
has won 3.
The likelihood of surviving this encounter. The Meg, along with other sharks with comparably broad muzzles, don't necessarily have binocular vision, but do achieve this by moving their heads side to side, giving them an overlapping field of up to 44 degrees.
Oh, that's sick.
One thing is being able to see, but another is to be able to discern what you're looking at. Sharks, unfortunately, aren't all that great at this, especially up close.
Oh, this was Senses category, right?
This is the reason why sharks mistakenly attack humans on surfboards or even inanimate objects such as small boats for small whales or seals. At a distance, sharks will be able to tell what something is. Rough silhouettes will be detected as both food or threat, but up close, things become even more
that's
blurry.
why I just stay myself on the beach.
However, did show some signs of
a shark is not about to walk towards me on the beach, so
given that it did identify the organism that was causing it pain in this scene. This could have been seen as a somewhat blurry image still. After all, it is mentioned in the novels that most of these Megs were in fact blind. These Megs in these film adaptations are an exception. Additionally, sharks have small electroreceptors
so they don't have great
known
vision.
as ampulla of Lorenzini. Small mucus or gel-filled organs dotting the skin of sharks allow these to pick up electrical signals caused by muscular movements of any surrounding creature.
Bro, the analysis is crazy. Big shout out to Goji Center.
Neuromats
did a lot of work in this video
of this shark. But how did this Meg navigate through its deep and dark habitat? It's possible that the Meg evolved traits found in modern-day deep-dwelling sharks, using a combination of their eyes to dim light contrasts and the ampulla to detect surrounding movement. Additionally, these guys have an infamously good sense of smell. Not only
that's what I was gonna say. The sense of smell has got to be really good.
Distinguishing the scent of specific prey animals.
He can smell the blood in the water. Yep, there it is.
Oil or loose skin cells or scales. This isn't particularly useful in combat, but will allow the Meg to detect the Mosasaur long before the Mosa detects him.
And it would be over. I'm telling you, if he's at the top, Meg comes from the bottom.
Adaptations to the battle arena. Scaling to the size of InGen's iteration of this creature, this animal's eyeballs would have been about the size of a large grapefruit, reinforced by large sclerotic ring bones for stability.
That's a big eyeball.
These allow the eye to focus while moving quickly and changing direction underwater. Therefore, in this fight, the Mosasaur will be able to focus quickly on incoming objects and have a really good sense of where the shark is at all times, as long as it's in close proximity. Their binocular field of vision, however, is not as high as when the Meg is moving its head side to side, spanning at about 29 degrees, similar to modern-day monitor lizards. This is still enough for this scenario, given their wide monocular vision.
I'm giving this one to the Meg.
What about their other senses, such as
I'm doing
smell?
it only to tie it up, actually.
It is known that the modern relatives of mosasaurs are snakes and monitor lizards, which wield a special body part known as a Jacobson's organ, which relies on its forked tongue to catch scent particles and scan them using this organ, sending this data to the brain for processing. The issue with InGen's version of the Mosasaur is that there is no forked tongue, suggesting the lack of or a greatly diminished Jacobson's organ.
So he doesn't have that sense.
This, however, could have been made up for with a better sense of hearing.
What was that?
Since this InGen Mosasaur was a very vocal creature, it's only plausible for this animal to have a developed set of ears. On one hand, you have an oversized shark with capabilities of detecting the presence of another animal from miles away.
I think the shark is going to take that. I'm not going to lie to you.
Making this animal practically impossible and slightly better than average shark vision.
Right.
On the other, you have a creature whose vision makes it an able combatant in close range.
Just took that shark right in half.
Both abilities are important for this matchup, but
the Meg wins.
The Meg senses set it up better for an ambush against the Mosa, the Meg takes the edge in this category.
Okay, so right now, that's where we're going to end this video. But for right now, they're both tied in the categories, 3-3. So the next time we see this, we're going to see the battle. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you for watching with me. I love ya. Goodbye.